Feels good to have TikTok back, right? Shout out to every TikTok. Watching this after we have a couple hours. Live stream, well, it worked for about half the day yesterday, but the live streaming was not working all day. But now the live streaming is back on. That is great to see. Let's just make sure we are live everywhere we need to be live. YouTube, good morning. Rumble, X, good morning. Facebook, good morning. LinkedIn, are we active on LinkedIn? Yes, we're active on LinkedIn. Good morning. Instagram, good morning. And TikTok, good morning. So everybody knows the topic here today. Everybody knows what we're talking about here today. Aries Chica got the #1 gifted badge already off the top. Shout out to everybody for the gifts over there on TikTok. Again, congratulations to the TikTok users. All right, you didn't have access to the app for what, a couple hours, about maybe 6-7 hours. No, it was longer than that. Maybe about 10 hours yesterday. Then it came back, and then the live stream wasn't working. I tried to do a live stream. I did a live stream yesterday. Actually, many of you may have missed it. Make sure, by the way, if you're following me on TikTok, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm live on YouTube right now. My YouTube is YouTube/@DreB. So make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. The link is in my profile on TikTok, just in case any shenanigans happen with TikTok, whether it's TikTok kicking me off or TikTok getting itself kicked off of the servers in America. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you have more than one way of getting the message, because I do go live Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. But if something goes wrong with TikTok, I'll still be live just in other places. So just in case any of y'all know that, just in case any of y'all didn't know that, by the way. So the topic here today is President Trump round two. We all know Donald Trump won the election in November of 2024. Depending on who you ask, might have been the third straight election that he won. But we know he at least won two officially. And this is the second one. And today is inauguration day. So I'm talking about this here today because today is the day he officially actually becomes president at 12 o'clock noon. His inauguration ceremony, I believe, begins around 9 or 9:30 Eastern today. Then they'll have the ceremony. And then at 12 o'clock, he's officially president. Joe Biden got to get the hell out of there, along with Kamala Harris. And then Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, they come into the White House and they start doing what they're going to do. I don't know if any of you saw the speech that Donald Trump did yesterday in D.C., and it was basically a preamble to what he's going to be talking about today at the inauguration, the official ceremony and all of that stuff. But you should listen to that, even if you did not vote for Trump, even if you're not a fan of Trump, because he is going to be the president. He is going to be the leader of our country. And whether you voted for him or not, you should hope that he is successful, because, I mean, we still live here unless you plan on leaving America. And America has impact anywhere you go. America has some type of impact, and you should want to know what he's thinking about, what he wants to do, and what his plans are. You should want to know whether you are a fan or not. You should want to know what's happening. It's kind of like if you are anti-Trump and he's an enemy, you should want to know what your enemy is doing. You should want to know what your enemy is up to, just in case they use it against you. So even if you are a never Trump hater, you should still listen to the things that he's saying in his speeches and his porters and his surrogates, like his cabinet picks and all of that stuff. You should know what these people are doing so that you know what's going on. So today we're going to talk about Trump round two and what I'm expecting with this upcoming process. I got 13 points here, so I'm going to try to go through these relatively quickly for this hour. And then at 9 o'clock at the top of the hour, I'm going to open it up for questions and discussion. So if you have any questions or comments on anything that I say while I'm in the process of speaking, just hold them till we get to about that 9 o'clock hour, then post your comments. Or if you're on TikTok, you might want to hold them, because I won't see your notifications on TikTok. But on all the other apps, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, Rumble, and YouTube, I'll be able to see yours, because we usually don't get so many that it kind of overwhelms the feed. TikTok, it overwhelms the feed. So shout out to all y'all on TikTok. So let me introduce myself first of all. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete, author of 35 books on 4 TEDx talks, created this brand called Work on Your Game. Our job over here is to help people like you perform at your highest level, do so consistently, and produce high level results. And I didn't have my phone on silent. My phone just rang. Hopefully y'all can still hear it. Can y'all still hear me? My phone just started ringing for not supposed to be ringing. I should have kept it on sleep mode. But anyway, what we do over here is we take the tools to help athletes reach the top of the sports world. We translate those tools over to the business and professional world when it comes to high level performance, consistency of performance, and producing results. We're in a results based business. I tell people that all the time, and that's what we help people do. So let's talk about a result. of Donald Trump winning this election and what we expect, what we think is going to happen in this second term from now, which is 2025 up through 2028, technically into 2029. So number one, first thing I need to say up front, I believe Donald Trump winning the election in November saved the sanity of Western society for now. I do believe that. I believe that had Harris won the election in November, I think Western society was on its way to a very quick and rapid and nasty downward spiral. And let me be clear, Donald Trump winning does not end that spiral. All it does is it postpones that possible spiral. We'll see what happens after he's gone. But this next 4 years postponed that spiral downward that we were headed towards, that you could already see through what was happening in that as of right now, the current Biden-Harris administration. The Western society was going backwards in many ways, not just America, but America's the leader. So everybody else was following what we were doing. We were going backwards in many different ways. And Donald Trump winning is not so much about Donald Trump, it's about the fact that the people who had a say in this is why we have democratic election processes. The people spoke up and said, okay, we heard all the information you said about him. We saw the lawfare. We saw the court cases. We saw all the negative things you said about him. We saw all what some people call misinformation. I just call straight up lying, or you may call it propaganda about him to make him look bad and to make people not want to support him. We heard and saw all of that for 10 years. And the people came out and overwhelmingly said, that's the guy that we want. And it was a clean slap in the face to the direction that Western society was headed, specifically via the mainstream media and through, I guess, what you can call leftists. Some people call them leftists, and you have Democrats. I don't know which one is the furthest to the leftists. All right, those people, they got a clear slap in the face by Donald Trump's election. Again, not so much because of Donald Trump, but because the people said, we see and hear everything that you said and everything that you're doing, and we want something different than what you're doing. And had he lost, again, I believe Western society, specifically starting in America, was headed for a rapid downfall. And by winning, all he did for now, ladies and gentlemen, be clear, is that he just slowed down this process, because when he's out of office in 2028, someone's going to come in, whether that's a Republican or a Democrat, and this rapid decline is not going to be rapid for the next 4 years. There may still be some decline. Maybe he can stem it a little bit, but we still got to do something to fix the overall problems. And we'll get into that as we get into this point. So I'm going to talk about all the things that Trump kind of ran on that have been talked about and what we think is going to happen over this next 4 years with him in as president. So number one, and these are not in any particular order. So they talk about energy all the time, energy policy and energy dominance. And I'm currently almost finished reading one of Barack Obama's books right now. He was talking about energy. This is back before he even became president the first time. His book, what was it called? The Audacity of Hope. And this fossil fuel production that we could do here in America requires us to drill. And there's a big argument. I'm not an expert on this, but I know what the arguments are. And what I do is kind of break these things down so people understand them. There's a big argument about whether America should continue to do the drilling or should we try to go to other energy. And the challenge with this is one of the main cruxes, the crux of this conversation is that if America stops drilling in certain places here in the United States, it's going to put a lot of people out of work. It's going to put a lot of industries, basically is going to end a whole bunch of industries. A lot of people won't be able to make money, take care of themselves. So it's like this tough question that the government has to answer, because if we get off this type of fuel and this type of fuel and this type of energy, well, maybe it will be cleaner. Maybe it will help save the planet a little bit more. But at the same time, it's going to put a whole bunch of people out of work and it's going to kill a whole bunch of industries. So what does a president decide to do? Because either way, something can get worse. Either way, you can't please everybody. And this is one of the challenges of being president. This is the reason why, speaking of Barack Obama, you saw the way he looked when he won the election in 2008. Then you look the way he looked when he left office in 2016. You see how he aged like 30 years in 8 years? Is because of stuff like this, that there's never a proper answer. There's never one clear right answer to any of these things, even though politicians may frame it as if it's a no-brainer. It's never a no-brainer. And this is why when I did my live last week, I talked about why I would never get involved in politics. This is one of the reasons, because there are no black and whites. This is absolutely right, and everybody's going to be happy. That's impossible. If you're trying to serve 300 million people, there's no way you're ever going to come up with an answer that makes everybody happy. So what the conversation is going to be about is the rules for emissions, the rules for making America more dominant when it comes to energy and not reliant on other countries. Right now, America is relying on a bunch of other countries for our energy, specifically oil and fuel. And if something happens to those countries, or we have conflict with those countries, or those countries just decide they want to jack up the prices on us, then everything costs more for everybody here, but we are relying on them. So if we're able to get more energy from here in the United States, then we're not relying on outside resources and we have more control over the situation. Well, who wouldn't want that? The thing is, there are trade-offs to all of that stuff, because it could be hurting the environment. You're drilling into certain lands that maybe people want to preserve. There's a whole conversation around it. Again, not my direct area of expertise, but this is going to be a big deal over this next 4 years, because other side can have a completely different argument, completely different approach. Number two. Is that number two? That was actually number two. Number three, third thing that is going to be talked about during the Trump administration is immigration enforcement and border security. Now, when I say that Donald Trump winning kind of stopped the bleeding of what was happening in Western society, this is one of the biggest issues: immigration enforcement and border security. So the guy who's going to be running the border, what's that guy's name that Trump put in charge? He's going to be the new border czar. I believe his first name is Tom. What's that guy's name? The new border czar that Trump has in. I heard him being interviewed right after Trump said that he was going to be the guy. Like, this is probably in December. His name is Tom something. Somebody knows his name. Put his name in the comments. But that guy, one of the things that he was saying, Tom Homan, yes, that guy, Tom Homan. Yes, he was saying that this is going to be, we're absolutely going to enforce the border security. We're going to enforce our laws, which is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. And what's crazy to me, here's what's crazy to me. How is it that Donald Trump and Tom Homan and anybody else involved with the government and the border saying we're going to enforce our laws and we're not going to allow people to come into our country who are not properly documented? And if you're here without proper documentation, you're going to get kicked out. How is that controversial? I don't understand how this became controversial. And this is what I mean whenever I talk about with academics and people who work in government and people who have these crazy radical ideas. You may disagree with their positions, but we can't say that they're dumb, because these people are smart enough to where they have even done this. I mean, look at the fact that I'm even bringing this up. This is controversial. It's controversial to say that as a country, we're going to enforce our laws. We're going to enforce the border. And if you're here without proper documentation, you can't stay here and you got to go. How is that a controversial thing to say? And Donald Trump doing this, after Donald Trump won the election, you saw a lot of people talking about this in the weeks after he won in November. A lot of people were saying, oh, well, they're going to deport a whole bunch of people, or how are they going to do all these deportations? How are they going to do mass deportations? How are they going to get these people out of the country? Donald Trump's going to deport some of y'all who voted for him. You see people talking about this. Again, I got to ask the question a third time. How is this controversial? Any other country in the world, any of you who's from any other country outside of America, you can't just go there without proper documentation. And if you go there on, let's say, a visa, you go there on a travel visa. Let's say I travel somewhere on a travel visa. I can't just stay there. They say, all right, you got 90 days to be here, sir. And after 90 days, you got to leave. And if on day 100, I'm still there and they find out, they might put me in jail. They might put me in a detention camp in that country. And then as soon as they get the chance, they're going to put me on a plane back to the United States. And they're going to tell me, you can't come here again for 10 years because you violated our laws. That's how it is in damn near every country in the world. How is it that all of a sudden America, we're just supposed to let anybody in and not enforce our laws? Why we got laws if we're not going to enforce them? Why do we have a border if we're not going to enforce the border? The border, ladies and gentlemen, is a standard. It's a rule. It's a parameter. And I talk about the law of entropy a lot over here. Those of you who are not familiar with my work. The law of entropy states that, and this is a scientific law, that anything left to its own devices is always moving into a increased state of disorder and chaos. In other words, if you leave something by itself and do nothing to it, it just gets worse. All right? In life, things get worse by default. They only get better when you are conscious and intentional about them. So for example, if you don't brush your teeth for a month, your teeth are going to be in worse shape than the month before, right? If you don't take care of your health or your body for a whole year, you're going to be in worse shape at the end of the year than you were at the beginning of the year. If you have friendships and relationships that you don't maintain, you don't stay in touch with people, you don't text them, you don't call them, you don't talk to them, eventually the relationship disintegrates. If you have a house and you have a big yard and you don't cut the grass or pull the weeds or take care of it, then the yard gets worse. All right, we all understand this. Now, maybe you never thought of it as the law of entropy. Maybe you never even heard of it, but we all understand that when we just leave things and do nothing to them, they get worse automatically. I'm bringing all that up to say that the way that you fight off entropy is by having standards, parameters, rules, and procedures. In other words, discipline. When you have discipline of brushing your teeth and flossing a day, then your teeth stay healthy. When you have discipline of paying attention to what you put in your body and what you do with your body, such as exercise, then you stay in good physical shape. When you maintain your relationships, you keep your friends and you keep influencing people. So, and when you have standards and rules, then the natural increase in disorder and chaos that comes with just human life is pushed off. It's staved off when you have rules and standards. I'm saying all that to say, going back to my earlier point, Donald Trump winning this election is going to reintroduce some rules and standards that we have seemingly been trying to push away and get rid of here in Western society, which I believe is better for Western society, which is it's a conservative way of looking at things. I believe when you talk about, because somebody asked me in the comments last week, what's the difference between a liberal and conservative? Now, you can look it up in the dictionary, the difference, but I would say that conservatism is about conserving things that already exist. In other words, there's some certain standards and principles that exist. We want to conserve those standards and principles, whereas liberalism is more about openness. Let's just be open to other ways of doing things and open to more freedoms and just more laissez-faire, letting people do and be however they want to do and be. Now, if I had to pick between the two, I would choose the conservative angle because one of the foundations of what we do over here is about discipline. It's about foundations. And I gave you all of that to get back to the point about immigration and border security, that a border, ladies and gentlemen, is a parameter. It's a standard. It's a rule. That's what a border is. If you're not enforcing your border, then you don't have it. There is no border. The reason that we have a border at the southern point and the northern point and the northern edge of America is because the border says when you're on this side, you're in America, and when you're on this side, you're in Canada. And if we're not enforcing that line, then what is it? We don't have anything. If you're not enforcing the line that says you're on this side, when you're here, you're here. And when you're over here, you're over here. We're not enforcing that. What do we have? It's not a border. I don't know what it is. It ain't a border. Borders make countries what they are. So if I was to, for example, if I was to give you I was to go find a picture of a silhouette of America, right? The outline of the United States of America and show it to you, and it didn't have a name on it. It didn't have any labels like the label of the country or the label of the states on it. And you just saw the frame, the shape of the country. And I said, what is that? All of you would answer the question accurately. You would say, oh, that's the United States. If I showed you one of Africa, you could see it and say, oh, that's Africa. If I showed you Australia, you would see it and you say, oh, that's Australia. You would know what it is just by the shape of the border. Now, if we are not enforcing that shape, if we're not enforcing those lines, we have no country. So again, I find it really amazing that these people who have some, let's just say ridiculous, for lack of a better term, ideas of just letting anybody come into our country, not kicking them out when we realize that they came in here without going through the proper protocols. And then someone coming along, Donald Trump, Tom Homan, everybody else on the MAGA side, saying we're going to start enforcing our rules and we're going to kick people out who are not supposed to be here because they don't have proper documentation, and or they came here as a guest and they're disrespecting what we're doing here. All of a sudden, they're the radicals. They're the crazy people. Now, how were they able to get that one in? Y'all tell me. How are they able to get people to believe this? How do they get people to accept this? I don't know, because it was crazy to me from the beginning, but they have flipped the script of this entire conversation. And here's another thing you have to understand, that in the United States of America, many of you are citizens of the United States. Many of you are natural citizens. You were born here. Your family's from here. You've been here for whatever number of generations. When you go to another country outside of America, you go to another country. Let's say you have proper documentation, right? Let's say I go to, what's the country I could go to? I gotta be careful what countries I mention here, because on TikTok, you can't say every country. There's certain countries' names I can't say here. Let's say I go to Brazil. All right, can I say Brazil? All right, let's say I go to Brazil and I have proper documentation. I got the right paperwork and everything, and I'm in Brazil hanging out. And I start acting like I don't have any sense in Brazil. I'm committing crimes. I'm just disrespecting the culture, disrespecting the way things go there. I'm getting police called on me. And what's going to happen is the Brazilian government is going to take a look at me and they're going to say, wait a minute, this guy is not from here. He's not a citizen of here. Even though he is legally allowed to be here in our country, at the same time, he's a visitor here and he's not respecting the way that we do things here in this country. He has to go. They will get me out of there. And it's the same thing that it should be here in the United States. Just because you came here, even if you have proper documentation, if you're a visitor, you got to respect the rules of the place that you're visiting. It's kind of like if you invited me to your house for dinner I can't just come in your house and just disrespect your house. If you say, hey, everybody takes their shoes off at the front door, I can't say, well, I'm keeping mine on and just walk around your living room. You wouldn't allow that. I can't just come in there and just start talking about your furniture is terrible and your wife is ugly and just trash your kids. I can't do that. You wouldn't respect that. You wouldn't allow me to stay in your house. You would ask me to leave, or you would say it a little bit more forcefully than that. So how in America did we just all of a sudden, actually, this is not all of a sudden, but how do we gradually become this place where we're just supposed to welcome anything and everything, anyone and everyone, regardless of what they're doing and regardless of how they're behaving? I don't find that acceptable. And it's one of the reasons why society here in America is starting to disintegrate, because we are not enforcing our culture and our standards on visitors who are coming into this country. If you are a visitor, you got to respect the way that things go here. And the challenge is the way that things go here has been slowly disintegrated to the point that there is no way. All right, there are no standards, there are no principles, there is no identity. Why? Because we're letting so many people come in here that the fabric of the culture of what America is supposed to be has slowly disappeared. We don't even know what it is anymore. This is what I meant in my first point. That if Harris had won that election, it would have disintegrated to the point that it would no longer be recognizable. And this is the reason why Trump's whole campaign has been MAGA, make America great again. And I believe one of the pieces of that is it should be clear what it means to be American. It should be clear what America is about, what it stands for. I think Harris was about destroying that and tearing it down. I believe Trump is about restoring it and solidifying it. That's just my view between the two candidates. Also, my view between just the conservative side of things and the liberal side of things as it currently stands. It has not always been the case. That was not the case 20 years ago with both sides. That's the case now today. And I believe the border security is a big part of this. This is a big part of Trump's campaign. I think it was the biggest piece of his campaign was the border. I think or immigration, let's just say. And I believe that they are going to do a more thorough job. Now, are they going to be able to just put a bunch of people on buses and have 100 buses leaving the country? I don't know if they're going to do all that. I don't know if we have the resources for that. But are they going to actually enforce the border? Is there going to be less illegal immigration in this country? I believe so. I think that is definitely going to happen. And we'll see what they end up doing with these mass deportations that Tom Homan was saying that they're going to do it. But we'll see. And again, I'm going to answer questions and comments at the end. So I think they were at least going to make an effort. I think they are going to make an effort to enforce the border and enforce the laws at our border, which is a lot more than the current administration. Again, as of this moment when I'm recording this, currently it's still Harris and Biden, or Biden and Harris. It might as well say Harris and Biden, but they did not try. They didn't even try. They didn't try to enforce the border. And the border just means you can't come here without proper document. They didn't do that until the summer or the spring and summer of 2024, when they realized, or they woke up and said, oh, wait a minute, Donald Trump and his campaign are going to use the lax border enforcement against us during this campaign. We can't let them do that. So let's go and start actually closing the border. Let's actually enforce our laws. Let's stop letting people just pour over our border and just come into our country without anybody checking them. Let's just stop doing that, what we've been doing for the last 3 years. And now let's act like we are actually enforcing the border. But everybody saw through the nonsense. And if you saw the debates between Kamala and Trump during 2024 and the interviews that Kamala did, where she repeated the same talking points, she kept saying, well, we got a bipartisan border bill. Remember, she kept saying that we got this bipartisan border bill that, because Trump would say something like, hey, or the interviewer who was asking Kamala a question would say, hey, all these illegal immigrants are coming into our country undocumented. The border has not been secured at all during you all's campaign. Why? What's the deal? What's going on? And Kamala's answer was, she gave the same answer 30 times, was that we came up with a border bill that is bipartisan. We got people on both sides of the political aisle to support this bill. And Donald Trump called up all his friends in Congress and told them to not support the bill so that he could run his campaign based on the illegal immigration thing. The challenge with this is twofold. Number one is that Harris and Biden were in office for 3.5 years before they allegedly came up with this border bill. So first of all, for 3.5 years, y'all did nothing. Now, all of a sudden, you want to get serious about the border. So it was a flimsy point, even if we were to believe her, it was a flimsy point. And the second thing is, the second part of this problem was that the border bill that she came up with was only because, again, they wanted this. They wanted the border to be open. That's why it was happening the way that it was happening. The other part of this was, actually several different pieces of it. A lot of the money in that border bill was not going to the border. Any of you knows anything about the details of it, the majority of that money was going to a country overseas that starts with the letter U that's in the middle of a conflict right now with another country with the letter R. And I can't say their names on one of these platforms. That's where the majority of the money from that border bill was going. A lot of people don't know that. That's where the money was going. But this is a flimsy point that, oh, now we got a border bill. In the last 6 months of the last 6 to 8 months of your administration, now all of a sudden you want to enforce the border. Nonsense. Moving on, because I talk about that all day. I did a whole live on this this concept of, my mic's hitting the shirt. Is it popping? All right, it should be better now. Tax reform. Next point, tax reform. So taxes is always a thing. As long as I've been able to remember politicians debating, there's always a conversation about taxes, because a lot of people don't know that income tax was not always a thing in the United States of America. Income tax started back about 100 plus years ago, when a bunch of people who didn't have as much money as other people started complaining that other people had more money, and they were able to pressure the government. And I'm being painted with a very broad brush here. They would have pressured the government into instituting an income tax where the people with more money got taxed a little bit more than the people with less money. And this made the people with less money feel appeased, because the people with more money were getting more of their money taken from them by the government. That's how income tax started. What does that sound like? Sounds pretty familiar, right? The whole concept of taxing. And I did a whole live stream on this as well, by the way. So every one of these subjects that I'm talking about, immigration, taxes, why I wouldn't work in politics, all of these things, I've done live streams on each one of these individually. You can find them on my YouTube channel. Just go to my YouTube channel. You'll see the playlist is called Current Events and Social Topics and Politics. I've done lives on all of these, in case any of you didn't hear them. So this is where income tax started. And this whole concept of tax the rich and quote unquote billionaires they don't have to pay as much in taxes as everybody else, and all this nonsense. I'll give you all an anecdote here that I've shared in the past, but some of you probably didn't hear. So about 4 years ago, I was sitting in Miami, and I'm in Miami now. And it was in this heavily foot trafficked area where I live. And there's a bunch of people walking around. I was sitting outside of this Capital One cafe. It was kind of like a Starbucks. I'm using my laptop, and I didn't have a suit on then. This is before I was wearing a suit all the time. And this person walked up to me and said, "Hey, we're doing these street interviews talking about like social issues. Would you like to be interviewed?" And I said, "Sure." So the first question for the interview, the woman said, and I don't think they ever put the video out, because I know they didn't put the video out. Here's the first question she asked. She said, "Do you think it's okay that billionaires pay less in taxes than me and you pay in taxes?" And my answer to the question was, first of all, how you know I'm not a billionaire? She didn't know who I was. And then she said, "Are you a billionaire?" And I said, "No." And then she asked the question again. And I said, "Yes, it is okay, because the tax code in America allows, based on how your business is set up and how your money is set up, if it allows you to not have to pay as much in taxes, why would you give more money to the government?" We know the government uses money inefficiently. We know the government is not effective in their use of money. And anybody who has earned money, your job is to keep your money, not to give your money to the government. This whole pay your fair share nonsense I'm completely against the concept. And you've seen Barack Obama said this, Hillary talked about it, Kamala talked about it, Biden talked about it. I'm not a fan of that concept. I'm not a fan of the concept of pay your fair share. I'm a fan of the concept that I want my accountant to play every game you can play legally to allow me to keep as much of my money as possible. I don't want to give my money to the government. The government needs to figure out whatever they need to do money-wise. You figure it out on your own. The way we can figure out how to give money to all these other countries and print money through the Fed, y'all figure that out. You're not going to use my money to figure that out. No, I'm not doing it. And my answer was, that's more than what I said there, but paraphrasing. And I remember when I answered the question in the street interview, I could tell by the woman's face while I was talking, I'm like, this interview is never coming out, because I knew this interview wasn't coming out. I knew what kind of answers they were probably looking for, and I gave answers I knew she wasn't expecting. I said, they ain't never putting that out. And I never saw the video, so they probably never put it out. But anyway, when it comes to tax reform, they say maybe Donald Trump may give tax breaks to the wealthiest Americans. This is one of the things Kamala said over and over again. Biden said this. Hillary used to say this. Now, all Donald Trump wants to do is help out his rich friends, his billionaire friends, by giving them tax breaks. And here's the thing that I got to say about that. Okay, so Donald Trump, he's allegedly a billionaire, right? And so let's say he has a whole bunch of friends who are billionaires and millionaires as well. And let's say he does do that. Let's say that that's his aim, his goal. He wants to give tax breaks to his friends who also have a whole lot of money so that they can save money on their taxes. Well, first of all, we know that even if he does nothing to the tax code, people who have a whole lot of money usually are able to save money on their taxes, because there are certain loopholes that they can jump through in the tax code, because the tax code is designed to help people who generate jobs. That's what the tax code is designed to do. Any of you are familiar with Robert Kiyosaki and the cash flow quadrant? We know that employees and small business owners get taxed the most. Investors and business owners get taxed the least. The reason why they get taxed less, at least compared to the other side, is because they create jobs. The government loves when people create jobs, because more people who have jobs, guess what? That means the unemployment goes down. And it also means, the other thing it means when unemployment goes down is that the people who have jobs, they're employees. And guess what? They get taxed the most. Any of you who has a job, you look at your pay stub, you see how much money they're taking out of your check before you even get it? The government loves employees. Why? Because they get to take all your money before you have a chance to say anything about it. See, when you're an entrepreneur or an investor, you pay your taxes after you get your money. When you're an employee, you pay your taxes before you get your money. So they get to take it from you and you don't even get to have a conversation. When you're a business owner or an investor, you get to keep all your money. And then at the end of the year, or let's say right now, tax season is coming up, you do your taxes and then the government says, okay, you owe us this much. But you get to negotiate and kind of play around with the tax code and figure out how to save as much as possible. When you're an employee, you don't have a say. So the government likes employees because they get to take all your money up front. And where do employees come from? Employees come from jobs. Who creates jobs? Business owners. So these wealthy people, these millionaires and billionaires that people talk about, that you want to tax the rich, all right, you're already taxing them, all right, because they're creating jobs. They pay employment taxes. They are paying the employees. That's the reason that people have jobs. The same people you're preaching to about taxing the rich. The only reason you have a job is because a billionaire created a job. Now, this is where the job came from. So this is why they don't pay as much in taxes. All right, that's the whole deal. So this whole concept of tax the rich is a nonsense concept that will always work, because there'll always be people who don't have stuff, who don't see themselves as ever getting to the point of having stuff. And instead of figuring out how can I get up there with them, they instead want to complain about them. And there's a politician who will preach to that. There will always be an audience of people who will buy into it. So you see that a lot on the left, of tax the rich and people pay their fair share. Again, you've been hearing people use this for the last 15 years, at least back as far back as Obama. I remember this happening. So let's move on. Next, judicial appointments and legal reforms. So we don't know, and people always talk about this. We don't know, but Donald Trump may get an opportunity to appoint some new one or more justices to the Supreme Court over the next 4 years. Now, the thing about a Supreme Court justice is that they don't have a term limit. They are there for as long as they're there. So they can either choose to step down or they can die out of the Supreme Court, like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I believe she was still on the court when she passed away, and then she got replaced. So you can stay there for as long as you want to stay there. You can only leave when you choose to leave. Pretty much nothing you can do to get kicked out of the Supreme Court. So maybe Trump will get to replace some people on the Supreme Court. Maybe not. We'll see. But also he gets to appoint a bunch of judges all over the country in different circuit courts and et cetera, stuff that most of us don't really pay that much attention to until some big legal situation comes up. Now, being that Trump is running on a conservative side, he's probably going to appoint, when he does, conservative-leaning judges. Of course he is. Just the same way that Biden would appoint liberal-leaning justices. That's what it is. And they're going to align with his views. So this is just normal politics. I mean, there ain't really nothing else to say about this. For the most part, none of us really pays attention to what judges get appointed until or unless it becomes a big story, and or if it's the Supreme Court. So right now, the Supreme Court is, what's the Supreme Court right now? Is it 6-3 in terms of conservative to liberal? Can somebody fact check me on that one? I think it is. I think it's 6-3 in terms of conservative leaning judges versus the liberal leaning judges. I believe it's 6-3 right now. And there are a couple people on the Supreme Court. Now, of course, we don't want anybody to just randomly pass away, but there are a couple who are older. So Clarence Thomas is older, and Clarence Thomas is already conservative leaning. So if he was to leave, then he just get replaced by another conservative leaning judge. And the other one is, what's the woman's name? The Latin chick. I forgot her name. But she has some health issues, and people were talking about when people were saying this when Trump won in November. People were saying, well, she should, and she didn't. She hasn't even been on the court that long. I think Obama put her in. I forgot the chick's name. Sotomayor. Yeah. So Sotomayor. Thank you, Nico. So people were saying after Trump won in November, she should just step down now, and Biden should replace her, who was liberal leaning, so at least Trump doesn't get the chance to replace her with someone who. And a lot of people were saying that like in the week after this is even going to happen. Maybe nobody gets replaced. The next 4 years, maybe nobody will change. So we'll see what happens with that. Let's move on. Next, foreign policy and international relations. I personally don't like the fact that America has their hands in so many other countries' business because, and there's a legitimate point to be made on this, that when America gets involved in businesses outside of our country, such as giving money to other countries who are in conflicts, and that Donald Trump was just talking about this yesterday in that speech he gave at the rally he had yesterday, that America gives X millions of dollars to a country that starts with the letters AFG. I don't want to say their name. You got to be careful what names you say on these apps. But we give millions of dollars to those countries every year. And then people in America say, well, how is it we're giving all this money to all these other countries when we got people here in America who don't have food, who don't have housing, who don't have clothing, who their situation is not even set up, and they're citizens of America, but we find ways to give money to all these other countries, and these people are not even our citizens? That is a legitimate question. The answer is extremely complex, but it is a legitimate question. How are we giving money to all these other people? We got homeless people living on the streets right here in the United States of America. So foreign policy and international relations, the fact of the matter is America is still, at this point, we are still the most powerful country. Now, there are other countries, like the country that starts with the letter C, and the country that starts with the letter R, whose names that I cannot say on this platform. This platform on TikTok, I can't say it. I can say it on other ones, but I'm on TikTok too, so I won't say it. These countries are coming up in power and could have us beat in certain ways right now, but America still has we are the most influential still to this day. We have our hands in more other countries' business than everybody else to this very day. And what happens in our elections and what happens in our governments and our politics has more effect on what everybody else does in any other countries. Those are still just the realities of the situation. So we are in this other country's business. We address the conflicts going on in other countries. Again, we give money to these people. We get involved in them. We have the NATO situation. And Trump has stressed that other countries need to pay you want to talk about a fair share? This is where Trump talks about it. He says these countries need to pay their fair share. They need to pay the amount of money they're supposed to pay into these agreements that we have and these organizations we're a part of. And if you don't pay your fair share, we're not going to defend you if you get attacked by somebody else. And they know that he's serious about that. And they know if the enemy who might attack that other country knows you're not being protected by the United States, well, who's going to stop us? The answer is nobody. The current conflict is going on with the countries with the letters R and U. If America was not defending that U country, it'd be over. All right? It will be over. And as a matter of fact, that country with the letter R, if they wanted to turn that country with the letter U into a parking lot tomorrow, they could do it. They're holding back right now. Any of you knows anything about that conflict, you know what I mean. They could, if they wanted to, turn that country into just flat concrete, and it wouldn't even be there anymore if they wanted to. They're not doing that because they know America would get involved. That's one reason why they're not doing it, because America would get involved, because America's already has their hand in that business. But America plays basically the security guard for a whole lot of other countries in the world who otherwise could not and would not defend themselves against an enemy. There's a whole conversation to be had about that conflict happening with the R country and the U country, but I can't really talk about it the way that I want to talk about it on TikTok. So that's why I haven't really I haven't gone deep into it, and there's more I could read into it as well. But anyway, Donald Trump has said no payment, no protection. All right, that's the thing that Donald Trump has stressed. He said that back in his first term. He's saying it again in this term, and I'm on board with that. All right, why are we defending again? Why are we defending other countries? You can't defend yourself, you should get beat up. That's the way it should go. That's the way I see it. If you can't defend yourself, you get beat up. That's it. Or you get subjugated by the country that decide they want to take your stuff from you. Same thing will happen to us. If someone came to America and we couldn't defend ourselves, who's going to help us? Who's going to fight for us? Nobody. All right. There's no country in the world that could fight for us if we get attacked by another country. We got to fight for ourselves. So I don't like the idea of America having to be the big brother to defend all these other countries who can't defend themselves. And we might as well just take all they got. Why are we defending them? Then let them be who they are. Again, there's a whole ethical conversation to be had around that, but I don't even want to go too deep into it. Let's move on. Next, healthcare policy. We know healthcare is a big deal right now, especially after that the CEO got shot a couple months ago, and it was a story for about 3 weeks, and now nobody's talking about it anymore. But healthcare is always going to be an issue here in the United States of America because America is a very unhealthy country, for those of you who don't know. Any of you who's been to other countries, or you're from other countries, or if you have traveled, and this is for those of you who in America who ain't never been anywhere, much obesity as you see in the United States. I've been to the percentage of obese people walking around, I've never seen that any other country in the world besides the United States. And we are, every country I've been to outside of USA, America is richer than those countries. I haven't been to any country that's richer than the United States of America. So how is it that we have all these resources, yet we got all these obese people? We have all these obese people because people don't exercise, people don't take care of their health, and because of our food and nutrition system is not that it's necessarily bad, it's that we chase the dollar because we have a capitalistic system. The capitalistic system in America allows for companies that sell us quote unquote food. Is not actual food, it's really just a bunch of chemicals. They can sell us a bunch of processed food. That's the stuff that's in the middle aisles in the grocery store. Around the perimeter, you get the produce and the fruits and vegetables. That's where all the actual food is. All the rest of that stuff is just chemicals. And these companies are able to create this stuff and package it and sell it to us. And the more of it you eat, the less healthy you become. And this stuff tends to be cheaper. It tends to be more accessible. And it tends to be the reason why so many Americans are in bad physical shape. And it's a whole cycle. I did a whole live on this as well, by the way. It's on my YouTube channel, where companies are allowed, because we have a capitalistic system that allows everybody to chase the dollar above everything else. Capitalistic system means chase the dollar, which means I might go get some food. It's not real food, package it up and sell it to you for cheap. You buy it because it's cheap, and I did a good job marketing it. So now you go buy some Twinkies or some Snickers bars or some Twizzlers. None of that stuff is real food. And then as you eat more and more of it, your health gets worse. You get in a worse physical condition. Now you got to go to the doctor. You got to go to the hospital. They put you on a prescription drug. Now you got to pay for that drug over and over and over again. Your insurance has to pay for it, or you have to pay out of pocket. And despite the fact and the drug, what does that do? That allows Big Pharma to make more money, because you got to be on the drug for the rest of your life. And then you got to keep going to the hospital. You got to pay for that. And you got to pay for your insurance. So they're all making money off this. Now, as you get less and less healthy, you're not able to move around as much. Your family has to take care of you. They have the increased expenses of all of this. And this is happening to millions and millions of people here in the United States. So again, is there a perfect answer to this? Not really. Reason why there's not a perfect answer to this is because this is a result of capitalism. The fact that we're such an obese country and we have so many people who are out of shape and in poor health and dependent on the healthcare system to stay alive is because of capitalism, because capitalism allows people to chase the dollar, which means even selling you things that are not healthy for you because it will make me money. So if I sold you something that was healthy for you, I wouldn't sell as much. So I can make $1,000 a day selling you junk, or I can make $100 a day selling you quality stuff. Most people are going to take the $1,000. How many of you would take the 1,000? How many of you would take the 100? Now, most of you might not want to be honest, being in the way that I just framed this point. But I believe most people, if they knew they wouldn't be exposed in the way that I'm laying it out so plainly, most people would take the opportunity to get $1,000 a day over 100. If I had the option of selling you $1,000 worth a day worth of junk, or selling you $100 a day worth of quality stuff, I'm probably going $1,000 worth of junk. Why? Because I want the $1,000. It's a $900 difference. That's a big difference. What would you do? And some people say you would sell both. Yeah, I would maybe sell both. But if I'm selling $100 stuff and giving you quality material, maybe I can make that work. But why? Look around. If you want to know the answer to this, look around. Next time you go in the grocery store, look around. What's taking up the majority of the store? Processed foods. This is where people get into bad health, because you eat a lot of processed junk for your entire life. Many people are not even know processed junk. You're not aware of how much sugar, how many chemicals, and how much nonsense is in your food that is not even real food. And then when you're 55, you have a heart attack or you get some issue and the doctor says, hey, you got to get on this prescription drug and you're going to be on it for the rest of your damn life, unless you were to make some radical shift in your health. And here's the other thing. When you go to the doctor, there is a way that you could undo the nonsense you've been doing to your body for the last 30 years. You could undo it. The problem is your doctor might not even tell you what it is. Why? Because if the doctor tells you what it is, you don't need a doctor anymore. Now you don't need the drugs anymore. Now you don't need the operation. Now you don't need the prescription. So if I'm the doctor, I can tell you something that might help you reverse all the stuff that's going on, and you would never need to come to me again and never pay me another. Or I can just tell you, hey, just stay on this drug, stay on this prescription, and keep coming here twice a month for the rest of your life. That's going to make me money. Which one might I tell you? Again, this is one of the trade-offs of capitalism. I'm trying to help you all understand. I'm not 100% for capitalism. I'm just helping you all understand there's a trade-off to everything in life. Everything in life has a trade-off. There are no perfect scenarios. There are only trade-offs. I don't think there is a better system for America than capitalism. However, that does not make capitalism perfect. There are some drawbacks to capitalism. One of them is that when you incentivize everybody to get the dollar at all costs, people will get the dollar at all costs. And the reason the healthcare system is what it is here in America is because people are incentivized to chase the dollar. The food companies are incentivized to chase the dollar. The scientists and the chemical companies, the marketers and the advertisers, the doctors and the nurses, they get you on the prescription stuff, the big pharma industry, which makes more money than all of them. And then you get caught in the cycle. Now you're just you are in the system. You are in the matrix of the healthcare system. And some of you listening to this, you're in the matrix right now. And some of you are on your way to being in the matrix because you keep eating that garbage and you don't even realize that you're eating garbage. And this is all part of the healthcare system. I can give as you can tell, almost all of these topics, I can give a whole hour-long conversation, but I'm trying to move along. I know, we all know, Donald Trump is not a fan. We're talking about healthcare here. Donald Trump is not a fan of the Affordable Care Act, which is also known as Obamacare. Those are the same thing for people who don't know. He's not a fan of Obamacare and seems like he's going to try to do his best to eliminate and destroy Obamacare, which leads to, again, a whole lot of back and forth, a whole lot of trade-offs between whether it's if Obamacare stays, is good for certain people, bad for others. There's some good points, there's some bad points. If Obamacare goes away, there's some good things, there's some bad things. And the healthcare system in America is generally fucked. If you would ask me what I think the healthcare system here is not good. I think if you want my opinion on what you should do when it comes to healthcare is stay out of the system completely. Take care of your body, exercise, stop eating junk, walk around the perimeter of the grocery store. Don't buy anything from the middle aisles. No processed food. So stay away from most processed foods. I eat processed food, but stay away from most of them. Balance them out with actual food, no meats, fruits, vegetables, and the stuff that grows out of the ground and things that were at least one time. That's where most of your food is from. Drink more water. Stay away from things that you know are bad for you, like drugs, alcohol, and processed sugars, and exercise. If you did that, you probably help yourself stay out of the healthcare system, stay out of the doctor's office, stay out of hospitals, stay off prescription drugs, and stay away from anything that Big Pharma has to offer you. That's my prescription for you. All right, you want to stay away from anything that's going to lead you to needing anything from the pharmaceutical industry, period. Any kind of drugs, anything over the counter, anything prescription. You want to stay away from all of that shit. I don't take any medicines. I take no medicines. I'm on no prescriptions, and I don't plan on taking or being on any of that shit based on lifestyle choices, folks. This is a lifestyle thing. And the United States of America, because of our the wealth of our society in general, we offer people any lifestyle option that you want. You can live any way you want to live. You want to smoke all day, every day, you can do it. You want to eat and watch Netflix all day, every day, you can do it. Now, you want to take in a whole bunch of processed foods, there's plenty of it available for sale. Go to the gym, go ahead. And the good news is when your body starts breaking down when you're 57, now you just go to the hospital and put you on a drug that'll keep you alive for the next 40 years. The problem is you got to pay for it. See, this is the issue. They'll put you on a drug, you can stay alive. All right, there are pharmaceuticals that'll pretty much do anything you want to do. You want to lose 50 pounds in a week? All right, do this operation. They'll sell you anything. The problem is you got to pay for it. And this is how the situation propagates itself. But anyway, let's move on because I can talk about that, as you can see, for a long time. Moving on, educational system. I've done a whole live on this as well. So every one of these points, folks, again, go to my YouTube channel. The link is in my bio. I've done entire lives on each one of these topics individually. The educational system overhaul. Now, Donald Trump claimed during his campaign, I believe this just was campaign talk. I don't think he's really going to do it. But campaign talk, floating the idea of eliminating the Department of Education. That would be a how would I describe this? There'd be a ton of uproar. Let's just say if he even tried to do that, there'd be a ton of uproar by a lot of people if he even tried to do that, and a ton of conversation that would lead to it would provide plenty of material for somebody like myself who talks about current events on live streams. I don't think he's going to do that. I think what he's going to do is try to restructure it. He's going to try to change some things about it fundamentally. And I believe that change is in order. They're going to try to restructure it again. Also, the federal funding. Now, I do believe that when it comes to federal funding, I believe this is going to happen because that's just signing a couple documents. That he said this in the speech he gave yesterday, his rally, that they're going to get rid of CRT. They're going to get rid of DEI. That wasn't really about schools, but get rid of critical race theories in schools, get rid of on kids' schools. I agree with all that. There's no reason that a kid should be forced to get a jab of any experimental drug just to go to school. All right, that was crazy that they did it. There were many schools that did that 5 years ago. Not on board with that. Teaching CRT in schools, not on board with that either. And again, if you're a parent and you're a fan of whatever you consider to be CRT, meaning critical race theory, if you believe your kid needs to learn certain things that are in certain books or certain curricula that the school is now banning, Trump or whatever, Ron DeSantis down here in Florida said you can't have these books. Parent, all you got to do is go on Amazon, find out what books got banned. If you really want your kids to read it, buy the book. It'll arrive at your house within 48 hours. You got Amazon Prime, right? It'll arrive at your house in 48 hours, and you sit there with your kid and you read the damn book. So this whole uproar that people had about critical race theory in school, especially down here in Florida, because Governor DeSantis was banning books and all that stuff, all these books getting banned. And I saw a lot of people, black people mostly, and some white people, white people who claim to be allies of black people who feel like they got to speak for us. Shouldn't be. Shut the hell up. But anyway, different conversation. Saying, well, it's wrong that books are getting banned in schools, and that's the start of fascism when you start banning books in school. No, it's not, because you can read the same book at home. You name, I can get it on Amazon within 5 minutes. Any book that's ever existed, I can get it on Amazon. If it's not on Amazon, I'll go on eBay. And if it's not on eBay, I go to the damn library. But I can get the book. I can read any book I want to read. So any of you who got into this uproar, this nonsense conversation about they banned the book in school as if that means you can never read the book. If the only books you're reading are the books that you get assigned by a school teacher, you already got a problem. And this also applies to your kids if you're a parent. If the only books your kids are reading are the books that your school teachers are assigning to your kids, you are failing as a parent. So let me say that one more time. If the only books your kids read are the books that are assigned to them by a school teacher, you are failing as a parent. It's not the school's responsibility to have your kids reading books. That's your job, mom. That's your job, dad. That's not the school's job. The school has your kid do schoolwork. You want your kid to know something about their heritage or their background or history or their skin color, you buy the books. Why are you depending on the school to do that? That's not the school's job. That's your job. You should be teaching. Your kids should be learning more from you than they're learning from their teachers. And again, I did a whole live on this. Y'all can find it on my YouTube channel. I've talked about these things many times. So the educational system overhaul, I am a fan of this. We'll see what they can do on a federal level. I think for the most part is always going to come down to the state level for a lot of these things. So whatever state you live in, if you are living in the United States, y'all listening to this, especially if you have kids. If you have kids that are young and they're going to be in school, you decide where you want to live, where you can get your kids the kind of education you want them to have. All right. And that's your call as a parent. That is not the state's call. That's not the government's call. That's not Donald Trump's call. That's your call. You need to be 100% responsible for the education your kids are getting. Even if you're sending them to school every day, if you don't agree with what they're being taught, you need to do something about it. That is your child. That is not the government's child. That's not the state's child. Your child does not belong to the state. The child belongs to you. And it's your responsibility to find out what they're being taught. And if you don't like it, do something. And if you don't do anything, then you're responsible. Moving on. Point number 9. We're talking here today about Donald Trump, round 2, what he's going to do. And these things are all going to be part of his administration. I'm not saying what he's going to do, but things that he floated and what is going to be paid attention to. Next is the climate policy. So we got this ongoing conversation about climate, right? So when they had the fires in California, people were saying, oh, it's because of climate change. And when they have hurricanes over here in the southeastern part of the country, oh, it's because of climate change. They're happening more often and there are bigger swings in the climate. And climate is always changing. And it's things that we're doing that are causing the climate to change. And there's this whole ongoing conversation about climate change. Here's where I stand on climate change. Is the climate changing? The answer is yes. The climate is always changing. Is the climate changing more now than it has in the past? I would say also yes. That part of climate change I agree with. Now, here's the thing. And I've talked about this before. This is what we call 2 movies on one screen, where people are using the exact same terminology, but they're talking about completely different things. So there's the actual climate change. Is the climate changing? Yes. Is it changing more now than it was in the past? Also, yes. But when other people, politicians, say climate change, they're talking about a different type of climate change. They're talking about the climate change that, oh, well, because of the climate change, we need to implement this new deal, like what Kamala was talking about. We need to stop. And Kamala Harris, one of the ways that she tripped over herself in the campaign was that she was pushing this Green Deal thing and said she was going to ban fracking in certain states. And then when she went on the campaign trail and she took Biden's spot, They said, are you going to ban fracking? Because you said you were. And then she said, well, we didn't ban fracking during Biden's term, and we haven't banned fracking. She didn't actually answer the question. And a lot of people noticed that. And I think that's one of the reasons why she didn't win, because she kept tripping over herself and giving non-answers to really clear questions that she kind of had to answer. And we don't know where she stood. So this is what I mean when I say the political climate change. When they say climate change, politicians, when they're throwing it out there, they're talking about, oh, because of climate change, because we accept the scientific climate change, we need to do these political things. I reject that. I'm not a fan of that. So you got to be very careful. I told you all, I'll say this damn near every time I'm talking about this in current events. The people who float these ideas out there, they have these nefarious ideas and these malicious intents because they want to do one thing, but they're only telling you about another thing. So they'll say, well, because of climate change, we need to do this. And the thing that they say we got to do sounds good. But then there's a whole bunch of other things they're not telling you that go along with it, that if you don't understand, they'll slip it right underneath your nose and you don't even realize that they did it. Again, like Kamala with this bipartisan border bill where most of the money was not going to the border. Most of the money was not even going to America. Most of the money was going to another country. That was in the bill. But she didn't say that. You never heard her say that once. That, oh, most of the money in that bill is going over here, but it's the border bill. They call it the border bill because it makes it seem like we're trying to do something good for America when actually most of the money in that bill was going somewhere that had nothing to do with America. But this is the challenge of being a politician, is that there's a give and take with every single thing that you vote for or vote against, or that you co-sign or that you don't co-sign. And there's no actual right answer. No matter what happens, somebody could use it against you, make you look bad. It's the reason why I don't want to be in politics, because anything you do can be used against you. Everything will be used against you. So another thing on the climate, electric vehicle mandates, these alleged Green New Deals initiative. I don't think Trump's going to go through with any of this stuff, even though Elon Musk he has Tesla, and Teslas are electric vehicles, right? Are all Teslas electric? I don't have a Tesla. I'm not really a fan of driving. I don't like the car Teslas, but I do own some stock in Tesla because I think a lot of people like them. Are all Teslas electric vehicles? People who know, are all Teslas electric vehicles? Do they have any gas powered cars? I don't know. I'm not a Tesla customer, so I'm checking. Anyway, vehicles. I think one of the big challenges with electric vehicles is that if everybody's on an electric vehicle, the government can kind of somehow, some way control your car. I'm not a fan of that. And maybe that's some tinfoil hat thinking, but I don't like that. I wouldn't want everybody being in electric vehicles. The government could just push a button and say, hey, if you didn't take the jab for this virus that's out, then you can't drive your car. Or you can only drive within this 15-mile radius and you can't go any further than that. I don't like that idea. I don't like the idea of everything being electric and everybody being on an electric car, because it opens the door for possible shenanigans. All right, that's the word that I'll say. So when I talk about the 2020 election, do we actually know what happened in that election? I don't think we'll ever know. I don't think we will know for another 50 years. I believe there were some shenanigans in the 2020 election. When it comes to electric vehicles, I think it opens the door for possible shenanigans. And I don't like that. I'd rather people be more independent with how they move around. Moving on. Next one is criminal justice and law enforcement. Now, this is a big one on Trump's side, because Trump was talking about law and order. He was saying, he said this it was a campaign phrasing that he said it, that he wants to give full immunity to police. So for people who do not understand, the president of the United States does not have control over what happens with police in your state. So if you live in New Jersey, the governor has more say over what can happen with police than the president does. The president has no say. President does not, the federal elected official, Donald Trump, does not control state level things. The police are state level. So in the state of Florida, we have the state police in Florida. Ron DeSantis has more say over what the police do here than Donald Trump has a say over what the police do. So Trump cannot give full immunity to the police. It's not possible. Now, police already get a certain amount of immunity, qualified immunity, based on them being able to do their jobs. The point of Donald Trump saying what he said was to let the voters understand that a lot of crime is happening because police, and this is just theorizing, police believe that if they actually do their jobs, doing their job will be held against them, and they might get found like criminally liable for something, similar to the George Floyd situation in Minneapolis, if you're just doing your job. Therefore, police either don't want to be police at all, or they don't want to do their job the way they're supposed to, the way they were trained to, because they don't want to end up in jail like the cops from the George Floyd situation. And that's a legitimate point. So when Donald Trump says, I'm going to give full immunity to police. What he is saying metaphorically is that I want the police to understand that they need to do their jobs fully, and they are not going to be held criminally liable for doing their jobs if something happens to go wrong, as long as you were doing it in the line of actually doing your job the right way, which is, again, the opposite of what happened with those officers up in Minneapolis. So that's what Trump was saying without even saying it. And this is one of his best skills, is that he's able to get these points across metaphorically without having to spell it out the way I just spelled it out. But a lot of people tried to use that phrase against him. Well, he said he's going to give full immunity to police. Well, first of all, he can't. And secondly, what I just said, I just explained what he meant when he said that. And he's great at speaking in metaphors and getting a visual into your head without having to spell it out. Another reason why I wouldn't work in politics is by the time I spell things out, people don't want to take all that time thinking. You got to be able to speak in really visual metaphors. Trump is excellent at this. You go back to build the wall. He got the point across, which meant we're going to enforce the borders. That's really what it meant. So conservatives in America tend to be, as far as what I've seen, tend to be more staunch on let's stop crime than liberals are, as far as I'm concerned. And actually, in the world that we're in today, that's absolutely the case. Kamala Harris, for example, in the BLM protests / riots, because they were protesters and they were rioters in 2020, Kamala Harris was on social media talking about let's get money together to bail these people out of jail. That's ridiculous. How they end up in jail? If you did something that caused the police to arrest you during a riot and you're destroying property, you're burning things down, you're menacing, you're physically attacking people, and you get arrested, how is Kamala Harris going around? This is when was she vice president at this point? No, this is before she came into office. So this is when the election season is happening, Trump versus Biden, and Kamala was the VP. She's saying, well, let's get some money and get these people out of jail. That's ridiculous. And she was a prosecutor. So you are a prosecutor in California and now working in the Senate, and you're saying, let's get money together to bail people out of jail. You are a prosecutor. Your actual job, whoever's across from you, get them in jail or get them convicted. That's up. That's the job of a prosecutor. Now you want to get people out of jail. So again, this is one of the issues that Kamala had, is that she would talk out of both sides of her mouth at different points, and people were holding her accountable to that. And she kind of didn't have a smooth answer to it, because let's be clear, Donald Trump at times has said things that conflicted with each other as well. The thing about Donald Trump, as well as Barack Obama, he was good at it as well. George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, all of them, is that they're good at kind of smoothly talking around it when you catch them with some type of contradiction. Hey, you said this, and then now you're saying this. What is it? And then Donald Trump is really good at talking around that. Barack Obama was great at talking around it. George W. was great at it. Bill Clinton was great at it. If you're going to be president, you got to be really good at that, because you have to do things that conflict with each other at different times, because there's no right answer when you're president. There aren't right answers. Kamala Harris was terrible at it. And the fact that she even got to where she got to, well, we know how she got there. But if she had to actually go through a primary, people were talking after she lost in November, like, yeah, well, she's going to come back in 2028. Yeah, okay. If she's coming back in 2028, I guarantee you the Republicans going to win. All right, if she gets the nomination, I guarantee you the Republicans winning in 2028. She ain't getting the nomination. She will not make it through a primary. Anyway, let's move on. Trade policies and tariffs. That's the next one. Trade policies and tariffs. So Trump talked about tariffs a lot. Those of you who were on social media, you probably saw Mark Cuban, used to be owner of the Dallas Mavericks. He is famous for being on Shark Tank, I believe billionaire himself. He did a lot of talking about, he was basically the attack dog on anything that had to do with money. He was working for the Kamala Harris campaign. He did work for the campaign. And he was on social media a lot, going back and forth with people, talking about tariffs and how it made sense and how it didn't make sense, and how it would cost Americans money, and how Donald Trump's points on tariffs were actually wrong points. And Mark Cuban was going on and on and on in a very kind of a smug way, trashing Donald Trump, which is fine. A lot of people trash Donald Trump. And Mark Cuban, his problem was he talked a little bit too much, because he made a statement maybe a week or two before the election that actually hurt Kamala. What he said was, I never see Donald Trump, or you never see strong, competent women around Donald Trump. Mark Cuban made that statement. That was a very, very bad thing for Mark Cuban to say. I get where he was coming from and the direction he was trying to point when he made the statement. The problem is it was a slap in the face to any woman who happened to be supporting or in favor of Donald Trump. He was basically saying any woman who's around Donald Trump must be weak and incompetent. But there's a whole lot of women who support Donald Trump. So it was a really bad thing for Mark Cuban to say. And that was pretty much the last time we heard Cuban talk on the campaign trail. After he said that, I think he got a call from the Harris campaign, like, all right, you're done. Anymore. He put his foot in his mouth when he did that. talking about tariffs a lot. So Trump has been talking about tariffs a ton, and I would bet he's actually going to follow through on a good amount of that. I think he's going to follow through. Whether you think it's going to be good, whether you think it's going to be bad, the point is he's going to do it. I think he is going to impose tariffs on companies importing from outside the USA and try to, as he did during his first term, and he's consistent. He wants there to be more manufacturing and more jobs kept in America than shipped outside of America. The challenge with that is it costs more money to hire Americans and to manufacture in America than it does to hire people outside of the country and to manufacture outside of the country. I can say this even as an entrepreneur myself. I could hire somebody in the Philippines for a lot less money than I could hire somebody in America. It just costs more money to hire Americans. It costs more money to do stuff here because the cost of living here is a lot higher than it is in other countries. So I understand why businesses export their jobs. I understand why they export their manufacturing. And I also understand how Donald Trump wants to bring it back, because then it'd be more Americans employed, less people unemployed, bigger tax base, because the more people who have a job, the more taxes the government can take from you out of your check before you can get it. I understand there's a trade-off to all of this, folks. So there's no right answer to this. Even though you may be strongly on one side or another, you understand there are trade-offs to everything. And again, this is the reason why people get in the presidency. It's a high-stress job because there is no perfect answer to anything that gets brought to you. Next, federal bureaucracy reform. I got two more points here. This one and the next one. Federal bureaucracy reform. So you heard about him bringing in Elon and Vivek. He mentioned them yesterday on this Department of Government Efficiency. Basically means they're going to fire a bunch of people from working at the government, and the government's still going to run at the same level it was, even with all those people fired. This is the 80-20 principle. Pareto's principle. 80% of your results come from 20% of your inputs. So the government right now could probably fire 80% of people who work there, and it would still run the same way that it's run right now. And then a lot of money would be freed up, and boom, there's your tax dollars. Maybe I'm kind of being tongue in cheek. There's your tax dollars if they were to eliminate the income tax, for example. So bureaucracy reform is going to happen. I think Trump is again going to try to dismantle what everyone calls the deep state, put the American people in a position of power, or at least more power. And the problem with the deep state is dismantling it is not easy to do, because Trump tried to do this the first time. So when you heard Trump talk about draining the swamp, he talked about that a lot during his first campaign in 2016. He didn't really talk about it that much. He talked about it less in 2020, and he barely mentioned, I don't think he mentioned the phrase at all in 2024, draining the swamp. Why did he stop talking about draining the swamp? It's not that the swamp went away. The swamp was not drained. Why did he stop talking about it? Because when you get in there and you realize how deep the swamp is, and you realize how many alligators and crocodiles live in that swamp, you realize it ain't so easy to drain the swamp. So I think Trump is going to try again to drain the swamp, but I don't know how successful he'll be, because the swamp is deep. There's a reason it's called the deep state for a reason. It's deep water. It is very deep, and you only got 4 years. I don't think he can drain the whole swamp in 4 years. That would require a certain level of anarchy and overturn in America that I don't think any of us want to see, but they are entrenched. And the deep state is, those of you who don't know what it is, a bunch of people who are not elected, but they work in the government, and they have heavy influence on policy decisions, even though they were not chosen by the American people. So in other words, they're influencing how things go, even though we didn't vote for these people. That's the deep state. You don't know these people's names. They could be standing next to you in the elevator or behind you in the line at the grocery store. You wouldn't know who they are. They are the deep state. They're not the people you know. Trump is not the deep state. Vivek and Elon, those are not the deep state. Are people whose names you don't know and will never know, and they work to keep it that way, but they're influencing a whole lot of what happens in the United States of America. And when Donald Trump comes in there talking about draining the swamp, they mobilized and said, well, no, you're not draining the swamp. You're not getting us out of here. We've been here longer than you. That's how it works. This is why presidents campaign and they say all these great things they're going to do. Then when they get into office, they can only do like 25% of the things they said they were going to do. The reason they can't do everything is because of the swamp, because of these deep state people who said, okay, I know you said you're going to do that, but you can't do that. And they have enough influence and power to block the president from doing what the president wants to do. Remember that the president's not a king. The president's not a dictator. The president still has a system of checks and balances that he or she, has always been a he up to this point, that he has to go through in order to get things done. And these people in the deep state will work to thwart you if you try to do something that they don't want you to do. That's how it works. So again, he's going to try. Will he do this? We'll see. So Trump has mentioned using this thing called Schedule F. This is the only policy thing I'm going to get into in detail. Schedule F simply means it makes it easier to hire, fire, and replace federal employees who are in policy influencing positions. So in other words, those people in the deep state, if Trump is able to use Schedule F, that means he can fire these people from their jobs. But any of you who knows anything about bureaucratic environments like academia, the government, or corporate America, somebody co-sign this. It's very hard to fire somebody when they're in a position in one of these places. No matter who you are, you can't just fire people when you work in bureaucracies. It's hard to fire people. So if I became the president of a university, if I became president of University of Miami, like today, I can't just go in there and just start firing people. I can't, because they are contractually entrenched in positions. You can't just fire people. In the government, you cannot just fire people. Corporate America, you can't just fire people. There's certain paperwork. Even if you're the new boss and you hate all the people that the last boss left, they still have to keep working there. This is what happened with Trump when he won in 2016. He thought he was going to drain the swamp until he got there and realized that, oh, you can't drain the swamp. I can't kick these gators. I can't kick these crocodiles out of the swamp. They got to stay here based on the situation. So he's a little bit smarter this time around, having gone through this once. So we'll see what he does. I think he'll be more effective at doing it this time. Is he going to do the whole thing? Probably not. They're going to fight. And that's the reason why he didn't say drain the swamp. So the reason why he stopped using that term, because he knows he can't do it. Last one, social policies. And I'm going to answer questions in the comments right after this one. So he already said this. He said this in his speech yesterday. He said this during the campaign, and I believe this is going to happen, is they're going to find a way to federally ban any type of men playing in women's sports, which they should. That shouldn't even been a thing. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, this will be a stain on their legacy, is that they were okay with this. And the left, the political left, is still pushing this to this day. What they're doing is not saying that it's okay. What they're doing is minimizing it. That's what they're saying. They're saying, well, it's only like 10 men playing women's sports right now in America. So why y'all making a big deal about it? Let's talk about more important things like the price of eggs. See, they're just trying to go around it. They're trying to go around it. I think it was Martin Luther King who said, and today is Martin Luther King Day, right? He said, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. Didn't he say that? So just because there's one doesn't mean that it is insignificant. If there's 10, that doesn't make it insignificant. If there's 100, doesn't make it insignificant. There should be no men playing women's sports, period. And the fact that the political left is trying to minimize the situation. Again, they're not saying that is okay. What they're saying is there's only a few of them. So why are we making a big deal? That doesn't make it okay. All right, that's ridiculous. There should be none whatsoever. Donald Trump said there's going to be none whatsoever. They basically threw him an alley-oop by even positioning themselves that way. This is a bad political move by the political left, trying to minimize it, because they made it easy for Donald Trump to just say, no, there'll be none of it. Though it is a relatively small issue, it allows him to get a big win that a lot of people understand and a lot of people pay attention to. So again, it was a bad political move by the left to make it so easy for him to win this. It basically gave him a slam dunk. They shouldn't have done this. So I would bet this becomes a norm over the next 4 years, that there will be no men allowed to play women's sports. There'll be more people speaking up and speaking out against it, more people pushing back against it, and there will be less and less of it allowed. I think this is going to be the norm over the next 4 years, pushing more, let's say, conservative views, and how it even became conservative to say that a man shouldn't be playing or a boy shouldn't be playing on a girls' sports team. Again, just the ridiculousness of where we have gotten to in the United States of America, that even has to be a point in my stream today. Why do I even got to bring that up, that a boy shouldn't be playing in a woman's sport? But anyway, you tell me. All right, y'all tell me. So let's take the comments here. Let's see what we got going on. And we got a comment on, I'm looking on my Facebook. I look at the place that usually had the least comments first, and I go to the place that has the most. TikTok, I know y'all got the most. So I'm going to come to TikTok in a moment. Let me see what we got going on Instagram. Anthony said, we got to get you on Joe Rogan. I would love to do Joe Rogan. Shout out to Joe Rogan. Joe, have your people call me. Mike said, where can I listen to your views on Caitlin Clark? That's on YouTube. I got a video about Caitlin Clark on YouTube. Mike said the separated bill was crap and Democrats didn't even like it. Yeah, I know. They tried it more than once and it didn't work. So I know. Michael said, you have the most millionaires who prey on other people by any means to make those millions. That's one way of characterizing it, Michael, but it's a little bit deeper than that. I mean, that sounds good when you're talking to the right audience, but we gotta give it more context than that. They're all electric. Tesla's all electric cars. Okay, well, that's why they're so popular. I mean, I get the concept of electric cars. I saw a guy driving an electric Mercedes-Benz the other day, and I've seen it in the Benz dealership. And the good thing about electric cars is that they get great gas mileage. And you get like 100 times the gas mileage on electric cars than you get on gas, and you ain't got to buy gas. But as I said, everything in life has a trade-off. So I'm on TikTok now. So I'm reading TikTok comments. You got a comment on TikTok, post it. Understand, folks on TikTok, I'm reading your comments way after you posted it. So if you responded to something while I was talking, I might not get the context. So it's best that you give me the context of what you're replying to when you comment. Viva la revolution, smash capitalism, Zoropiolis effect. Okay. Some conditions are genetic, have nothing to do with food or weight. Lucci, okay, fair enough. But can we agree that I believe lifestyle choice plays the biggest role in the outcome? Would you agree with that, Lucci, or would you say that a genetic situation can overpower that? I say it's more lifestyle choice. And for the majority of people, it's lifestyle choice. So A-Town said, I heard Chick-fil-A got some unhealthy ingredients. Some? They got more than some. Anything you're buying from a fast food restaurant, Chick-fil-A is fast food. Now, I actually like Chick-fil-A. If I'm going to eat fast food, I'm not eating McDonald's, I'm not eating Subway, and I'm not eating Burger King or Wendy's. If I had to pick fast food, I would choose Chick-fil-A. And Chick-fil-A's ingredients are still a bunch of garbage in the food. There are videos on YouTube with people breaking it down. They will actually tell you everything that's in there. And there's a reason why they don't broadcast. The companies don't broadcast what's in their food because they know it's garbage. Everyday Rider said, where's the personal accountability? Keep looking. Keep looking. You're not going to find it in most human beings, especially in America, because the government preaches to us as if they're going to solve all our problems. And this applies to both sides of the political aisle. They preach as if, hey, vote for me, all your problems will be solved. That's not true. Sheila said, we should all be growing our own food. Theoretically, you are correct. I don't grow my own food, but I get your point. Yes, you are correct. China. Is it China or Shayna? I'll call you China. Yes, money. What about genetic conditions? Yeah, what about them? Sheila said they don't care about us. They only care about money. Well, some of them, yes. At the same time, people got to take personal accountability. All right, if you know that processed foods are not good for you, I don't care what the company who made the processed food cares about. Just don't buy the processed food. We all got to take ownership of our situations. Zorpio said doctors beg people to eat healthier and get more exercise. I push against that. I push back on that. It's anecdotal. We don't know what every doctor is doing. We're not there in the office listening to the conversations. I believe that some doctors do that? Absolutely. Do I believe all doctors do it? No. I believe doctors work within the system. If a doctor works for a hospital, for a system, i.e. in the business, doctor works in the system. How do they make money? They make money by writing prescriptions and charging your insurance. That's how they make their money. Charging your insurance for your visits and for your operations and by writing prescriptions. Now, if they could get you off all of that, they would make less money. When you incentivize human beings to do a thing, to get a thing, humans will respond to incentives. That is human nature. That's just straight up just humanity. If you understand humanity, it works that way. Humans in America in the medical system are incentivized to have you take operations, to keep visiting the doctor, and to be on prescription drugs. Those are incentives. So we can't say that doctors beg people to eat healthy and get more exercise, not such that they don't need the doctor or the drugs anymore, because then there will be no need for the doctor. The doctor will make less money. A-Town said there can be capitalism with integrity. Yes, there can. That's what people call conscious capitalism. And it is not that a capitalist who's making a lot of money is necessarily bad. And see, that's the framing that I disagree with. And that framing happens a lot. That people just say, even with the fires that happened in California last week, they're like, well, this group gave this much, this group gave this much money, this group gave money. And they're like, well, no, Elon Musk didn't give enough money. Donald Trump didn't give enough money. Like, who are you to grandstand and tell, I'm not saying you personally, a person with this comment, but who are you to tell a person just because they're noted to have a lot of money, what they're supposed to donate to a cause? How much did you donate? And that's the grandstanding. That happens only in America. That happens time. And I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of the grandstanding of, oh, well, this person is a billionaire. They should donate more money than what they donated. Like, who are you to tell somebody else what to do with their money? Gucci said, wait until you need medication. Y'all smoke everything. I don't know who y'all is. I don't need any medication. I'm not taking any medication. I don't smoke. Said people smoke all day, then say food is junk. Well, some people do, but I don't smoke, so I don't know who you're referring to. Noah said, I should not be taxed if I can't afford insurance. No, you take that to the government. I can't, I don't know what to say about that. Yeah, ACA, I mentioned it. Am I a doctor? No, I just play one on the internet. Fry Fisher Dave said, United States has a 43% obesity rate. How can it not be a problem? Well, here's the thing about obesity. If people are obese, then what do they need? They need operations, they need drugs, and they keep buying processed foods. So that's great for the companies that sell this stuff. So who wants to solve the obesity issue? Who really wants to solve it? Maybe Robert F. Kennedy. And you see what they do to him, right? And when someone comes out on a big platform and they say they're going to solve these problems, the people who don't want them to solve the problem because they make money by the problem perpetuating itself, look how much they mobilized against RFK. When he came out and he started trashing Big Pharma in many different ways, he says people need to get healthy and watch what they're putting in their bodies. Big Pharma came after him. The medical system came after him. And anyone who's connected to those systems came after him, whether directly or indirectly, or they sent somebody else to go do it. Why? Because he is threatening their well-being. RFK came out and said, make America healthy again, and started trashing all these platforms with all his data and facts and all the stuff he knows and what they do to him. Look what they did to him. They didn't even let him run the election. He would have beat Kamala in the primary. They didn't even let him get in. Sheila said, even the produce is bad. It has no seeds. Yes, I've heard that. I've heard that in other countries, the produce is much higher quality than the produce we have here in America. It doesn't even taste the same. I've heard that. I heard many people say that. Thornton said that information is called educating yourself. Yeah, but try to get a whole bunch of people to do that. And try to get 300 million people who want to educate themselves. Good luck. Bruce said, you're a fear mongering. What on what subject? What did I fear monger on? Noah said, Kennedy about to fix this. Yeah, I did a whole live stream on Make America Healthy Again. So if y'all didn't see that, it's on my YouTube channel. Everything I tell you I talked about in the past is on my YouTube. The link is in my bio on TikTok, or just go to YouTube. Just type in my name. My name is Dre, D-R-E. My last name is Baldwin, B-A-L-D-W-I-N. I'm very easy to find. Give Me Liberty said, did you know the Confederates acted a lot of like MAGA? Policy is not your motive. I don't know what you're quite saying here. You got to put that in a better worded sentence. I don't quite understand your comment. Abstract said, no one is learning that. I don't know what you're referring to. Franklin, good morning. Gucci says, CRT was not part of any school curriculum. What you are saying is not factual. I didn't say it was factual. CRT, Donald Trump said, we're going to remove CRT from schools. That's what he said. That's what he said in his speech yesterday. And when he says CRT is going to be removed from schools, again, he's using it as a metaphor. People who don't like Trump, and Gucci, it seems like you don't like Trump, which is fine. You don't have to like Trump, and you're free to engage here. People who don't like Trump tend to take the things that he says and you break them down in a literal sense, whereas when he says them, he means them metaphorically. This is how people can be both watching the same movie, same screen, but see two different movies. So I'm explaining the metaphor for you. You're trying to attack it in a literal sense. The problem, Gucci, is that people have been attacking Trump's metaphors literally for the last 10 years, and it clearly does not work. So I see what you're doing. I don't know if you're doing it on purpose or you just don't understand, but it doesn't work. All right, he's about to get inaugurated as the president again today. I mean, how much more proof do you need that doesn't work? Mainstream media has been trying to do that to him for 10 years, and it didn't work for them. So you think you're going to do it? Thorpe said, a good way to take money from the federal government and give to state. Yes, and he might do that. We'll see. Noah said, you can't buy Dr. Seuss books. I know what you mean. I know that some of them, but you can still buy them, yes. Thornton said, why would you go to other places to read? Other places like what? I'm saying if I couldn't find a book in one place, I get it in another place. If the book exists, I will find it. That's the point. Gucci said, you agree with what I'm saying about books. All right, good. Rex said, this new interactive video generation is messed up. I don't know what you mean by that. Give Me Liberty said, parents are the teachers. That's Noah said, homeschool your kids. I think more people are becoming open to that. Gucci, yeah, I got to be careful. I got to be careful what countries' names I say. I've been warned by TikTok in the past. Be careful what I say. Certain names. There's certain names I cannot say on this platform. And I know that for a fact. That's not a theory. I know for a fact. Certain names I can't say. Noah said climate change is cloud seeding. Gucci said, I'm in Texas. Pray that our grid holds. Yeah, and pray that they protect that border. That's what they need in Texas. It's actually not the state, it's the federal government is supposed to be doing it. But yeah, I get it. Zor Piola said, this is word salad. Well, it's a good salad if so. Pause. Lucy said, I'm a fan of clean and free energy. Well, I think that's what we all want. Is how we get there is the question. The question is, how do we get there? Yeah, I don't like electric vehicles either. I'm not a fan of electric vehicles. And I don't know, for whatever reason, they just look different. I don't understand. I don't know enough about car manufacturing. Why can't they make let's take a car like the Cadillac Escalade or the Range Rover. Can you make an electric version and have it look exactly the same, just a different piping? I don't know enough about car manufacturing to answer that question, but electric vehicles, I can almost tell an electric vehicle just by looking at it. I saw an electric Mercedes the other day, and I don't like the way it looks. Like, why does it look like that? Why can't they just make the exact same look, just make it electric? There must be a reason for that. I don't know what it is. That's what I'm saying. Noah said, you had some weak speaking points. You should have went deeper on every point. If I went deeper on every point, no, this stream would be like 10 hours long. And those of you who don't know me, I wake up early in the morning. I wake up 3:45 a.m. Eastern. I go to the gym or outside to work out, and I drink a whole lot of water. So by the time I get done, the 2 hours that this live usually goes, I really have to go to the bathroom. So there's no way I can do a 10-hour live stream. It's impossible. Unless y'all are willing to sit here and wait for like a minute every hour while I go relieve myself. I'll push it to get 2 hours out of this. All right. So Zor Piowis says, everything the host is saying is painfully wrong. I disagree. Kim said they can already turn off power to our homes. Technically, they could. It depends on who they is. I get what you're saying, though. All right, so a couple of you are dominating the comments here today. I appreciate it. I'm not reading all these. When y'all talking to each other, I'm not reading those. I'm reading the ones that are to me. Joe says, sometimes I think George Floyd's situation was staged, but I can't prove it. No, I don't think it was staged. But again, like you said, you had to prove it. Ray said the companies just want EVs to stand out. Most of them are ugly. Yeah, I don't like the way they look. I don't know what it is. They just don't look good. Lucci said, so you think the police in the George Floyd case were doing their job? Well, you should look at the documentary called The Fall in Minneapolis, Lucci, if you didn't see it. In that documentary, I'm going to be brief on this. I did a whole live on this too as well. The police manual in Minneapolis instructs police officers to do what the officer, his name was, what's that guy's name who went to jail? The main guy. I forgot his name. Derek Chauvin, the guy with the knee on the neck, quote unquote. It was actually on his back. But in the manual for the Minneapolis Police Department, if a suspect is claiming that they're having some type of bodily issue, and they're kind of like getting erratic physically, it is instructed that you put them on the ground, face down, and you kneel on their back or shoulder blade to keep them under control. That is in the manual. Here's what happened. And we know it's in the manual because the woman who made the documentary went to someone who used to work in the police department, and she had the old manual in her house, and she pulled out the manual and showed you the page that shows it. There's literally a picture of a cop kneeling on the back of a suspect in the manual, demonstrating that's how you do it. When they went to court and this got brought up, this part of the conversation came up, the judge did not allow that information to be entered into the record for the jury to consider when considering their verdict. That happened. Go watch the documentary, and that's laid out. So the Minneapolis Police Department, what they did, they said that's not part of it, because they had a bunch of people from the department were called to testify during the trial, and they were asked directly, is it part of the training to do what Derek Chauvin did to George Floyd? And they all said no. In the documentary, this woman shows the manual and says, here it is right here. It's right here in the manual. So they said it's not. She said it is. And this woman was not on the trial. The judge would not allow any conflicting information to be entered into the record for the jury to consider. So does that have something to do with the outcome? I think hell yes. I mean, the whole thing was all about the knee on the neck, right? Isn't that was the crux of the whole case, was he's kneeling on his neck, and that's why George Floyd couldn't breathe. Not true. If you saw the whole 30-minute body cam footage, you know that George Floyd said, I can't breathe, when he was still standing up and he wasn't even in handcuffs. As soon as he got out the car, he was sitting in his car. The cop walked over to the car and said, get out the car. And George Floyd said, I can't breathe. All right, he wasn't even doing it. He wasn't under arrest yet. He wasn't in handcuffs yet. He wasn't in a police car yet. He said, I can't breathe. He was saying that the whole time. So there's a whole lot to that George Floyd story that did get told, but most people didn't pay attention to it. Emotions tend to overpower logic. Jordan said, Kamala is a joke. Well, she almost became president. I agree with you, Jordan, and she almost became president. So we got it again. And that's why I said Trump helped us dodge a bullet. Someone said Kamala's campaign is over because she almost won. Christy, thank you for the rose. She almost won. And she might come back. According to her supporters, she might come back. Now, we don't know what she's actually going to do. I don't think she's going to come back, but Noah said, peace out. All right, see you later. Piano said, so now you're smarter than the rich Cuban guy. All right, well, that's what we call a straw man question. When you start a question with so, often it means you're about to rephrase something into something that wasn't said and then ask me to respond to it. So that's exactly what you did. Gin and Juice said it wasn't even true. There were no competent women around Trump. Yeah, I mean, that's why Mark Cuban shouldn't have said it. That was a bad thing for him to say. It just looked bad. Even if he believed it, it was a bad idea to say it. Zorpio said Doge is already reducing head count. They fired Vivek. No, Vivek is still there. Donald Trump mentioned him yesterday. Gucci said, how do you dismantle all taxes and still pay our military and federal services? Well, if there were no taxes, they would figure it out. Human beings are pretty good at figuring things out. We don't need taxes to pay those things. We use taxes to pay them. We don't need them. There was not always an income tax in America, and America still existed. Demore said it will not run as smoothly when you fire that many people putting all the. No, I think it would. 80-20 principle. That's 80-20 principle. 80% of your results come from 20% of your inputs. When Elon Musk took over Twitter, he fired 80% of the staff. The app still works exactly the same. 80% of the people who work there got fired. So it applies. It would apply to the government very well. The government runs very inefficiently. Indiana homegirl said Doge will help drain the swamp. Oh, that's what they're claiming they're going to do. We're going to see what they do. It's not going to be as easy as it looks. Gucci said maybe the president, Congress, Supreme Court should serve for free and get a stipend. This is an interesting theory. Are those the A-Town? I don't know what you're referring to. Due to union, you have to have reason. Yes, true. Gucci said crocodiles are not indigenous to the U.S. We have alligators. All right, learn something new every day. You got my point, though. All right. In the discussion, it shouldn't even be an argument. I don't know what you're referring to. Men who can't compete with other men want to compete with women. Yeah, I can't argue with that. I know it shouldn't be any men in women's sports, period. I don't care what their reason is. America's the only where they peddling this climate change bull. Yeah, I think climate change, they're going to get other things in. They're just using climate change as the Trojan horse. Luigi said, too much water is not good. Okay. Michelle Hall said, first time listening to this live, I agree with everything you said. Well, thank you, Michelle. Glad you're here. Make sure you subscribe to me. Follow me here. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, Michelle, just in case any shenanigans happen over on TikTok. How much exercise do you think each American should get? Not my area of expertise, but I'll say at least 30 minutes of some type of movement every single day. I think 30 minutes is a good baseline if we're talking the masses of people. Now, if you're younger, you could probably do more than that. But the masses, at least 30 minutes of something, like intentional exercise, even if it's just a walk. But 30 minutes of doing something every day. Everybody needs that. That will make America very healthy pretty quick. Well, relatively more healthy. Gucci said, I don't like the way EVs look or sound. Yeah, I don't like the way they look. I haven't really heard them. I've been in a couple people's Teslas. I don't know how people like Tesla. I don't like Teslas. I don't like the way they look. I mean, they're pretty good on gas. I will say that. Well, they don't need to do gas. Their miles per gallon is amazing. That's the best thing about them. But the rest of it, I don't like. What's not in the manual is that it's okay to unalive a man in custody. Well, that wasn't the intention, Gucci. You know that. And someone said the old manual. We'll never know. That's the issue, Gucci. We'll never know. They played around with the truth there. They played around with the truth. Brittany, good morning. Said ERS, External Revenue Service. He just proposed it the other day. Oh yeah, I heard him say that. I saw him say it on X. Gucci said, what do you think about cleaning out the FBI, getting the CIA to do some of their work? Trump has thrown that out there too. But those people are not going to go easy. That's the issue. No, Gucci, you're asking good questions. You've agreed with some things. You disagreed. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with it. You are adding to the conversation, so I accept that. You ain't got to agree with everything that I say. That applies to all of you, as long as you have some substance as to why you disagree. And with the FBI and CIA, again, these people are not just going to go easy. They're not just going to leave. They're not going to let Trump just kick them out, or Doge, or whoever. These people have been in there for a long time. They are entrenched. And Trump only got 4 years. These people might have been there for 10, 20 years. Zaya said, Trump doesn't do nothing to help the economy. Well, y'all blame Biden. Well, every president does this. If a president does well economically, they take credit. And if they're doing poorly, they blame it on the previous administration. And they all do it. Even Barack Obama said Donald Trump had a solid economy during his first term. That's because it was my economy. So Barack Obama took credit for that. But then when Joe Biden was failing during his economy, he tried to blame it on Trump, and then Trump blamed it on him. So they all do it. If it's going good, they take credit. If it's going bad, blame the other guy. It's not new. They all do it. Gucci said, I don't like to work out, but I do like to exercise. All right. So the 10 Commandments be forced in schools. The 10 Commandments. I would say no. But I do remember being in school and we did the Pledge of Allegiance. The 10 Commandments is a Christian thing, and not everybody in America is Christian. So no, the 10 Commandments should not be forced in schools, because the 10 Commandments comes from the Bible, right? And the Bible is Christianity. Not everybody in school is a Christian. Some people might be Muslims. Some people might be the J word. I'd be careful if I say that or not. Some people may be Buddhist. Some people may not follow a religion, but everybody lives in America. So they should have the Pledge of Allegiance. I think most kids these days don't even know the Pledge of Allegiance. But we used to do that every single day when I was in school. We're talking elementary school, at least, not middle school, but let's say 80s into the early 90s. We had the Pledge of Allegiance, because that's America. Everybody's American, regardless of your religion. But we can't have people forced to consume a certain religion, because not everybody follows every religion, the same religion. So that's what I would say. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap this up in a minute. I do these live streams Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. Ray says 150 minutes of cardio per week. Yeah, that's fair. So you drive the BMW M60 for a BMW event. It was fast, felt like a spaceship, but I felt disconnected from the ground, very unnerving. Is the M60, I'm assuming that's an electric vehicle? Have I ever drove an electric vehicle? I don't think I've ever driven one. I've ridden in them, but I never drove one. So no, I'm not a fan. I'll pay for the gas. I'd rather drive what do you call the cars that are not electric? Whatever they're called. I'd rather drive the regular car. Gucci said 10 Commandments are already in schools and the rules and policies. I don't think every school. Rules of good conduct. Well, who decides the rules? Mara, Missouri. Who decides the rules of good conduct? That seems extremely subjective. I think every school will get to decide their own, and each principal will get to decide what the rules of conduct are. But anyway, let me tell you all, I do these lives Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. And it's usually about a current event or a social issue. I will be talking about the new administration, Trump administration, a lot. Why? Because mentioning Donald Trump's name draws attention. And when I'm doing these live streams, I am in the attention business. So mentioning Donald Trump's name usually gets more attention than if you don't mention his name. And if there's any type of actual news, something newsworthy comes up, I'll usually talk about that, or I'll get to it. And I'm usually talking about a social issue or current event. Only go anywhere between 1 and 2 hours on the subject, depending on what it is. And as I told you all earlier, by the time I'm finished this, I really got to go to the bathroom. I need to go to the bathroom right now. And make sure, if you're on TikTok, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm live on YouTube right now. So shout out to all my people on YouTube. All the replays from these lives. If you want to see anything that I tell you I did in the past, or you want to watch this one again, it is on my YouTube channel. I got probably 15,000 videos on YouTube. And that's youtube.com/@DreB, or just look my name up. My name is Dre Baldwin, DreBaldwin. You want to learn more about working with me, is workonyourgameuniversity.com. You'll see links to that in my profiles and bios and comments everywhere that I post. And I wasn't joking when I said I got to go to the bathroom. Everybody have a great Monday. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Work on your game.